Looking forward to this, Greg. We've had some great products from you, you know that. And I do know we're going to talk right at the end, about the success we've had in Manchester and maybe some off the record information, if I could put it that way, because I know we're not allowed to talk about it. So we're off to Leeds, where Leeds United are, and the rain comes sideways. Greg, tell us all about Leeds.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me first of all, Chris. I think today's going to be quite an interesting, exciting, and probably different conversation between the three of us. I've been involved in many of these webinars previously with different firms, and obviously I know you guys conduct them every couple of weeks. And I think often the same kind of locations are recycled. The Manchesters, the Birminghams, the Londons. It's actually quite rare to get something that's central Leeds. So we are very excited to obviously talk about why Leeds from an economic perspective, where it sits in terms of the outlook for UK property in general. I'd like to touch on sort of the build to rent schemes and why that's particularly important, and talk about some of the regeneration, the location, because this particular project is really all about location. Then we'll talk about some of the unit mixes, look at some of the price points, rental yields, obviously fire any questions back and forth, and then close off with some questions, if that's cool with you.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, I mean, as always, I ask people if they've got any questions as we're going along, put them at the bottom of the screen, and we can go, deal with them as we go along. Pete, you particularly like Leeds, don't you?
I do like Leeds. I spent quite a considerable time up in Leeds with a very good friend of mine who's a lawyer that's done some developments in Leeds. And we researched about 6 sites. This was just prior to me joining Holborn. And what I would say is that it's so difficult to find developable areas now within Leeds. They had their sort of regeneration flurry, shall we call it, and now this is a prime site, so great location. And when you actually look at some of the stats, I'm just going to read a few out. I don't want to steal Greg's thunder, but you've got the University of Leeds is there with the Russell Group, started in 1904. It's in the top 100 universities in the world, and the Russell Group are very, very well thought of. There are over 200,000 university and college students in Leeds. So it's a very vibrant young city, and it's stated as one of the most diverse cities in the UK. It was built on the River Aire at the foothills of the Pennines, and the old mills. Some of you would have seen the old mills up there. A lot of them have gone. Some have been beautifully renovated. You can feel that sense of history and heritage as well as the modern. And I think that's borne out in particular by, if ever any of you are lucky enough to go to Leeds, do go to the Victoria Quarter, the most wonderful shopping arcades you could ever wish to see. Just beautiful arched Victorian buildings. And then it leads down to the most modern shopping centre you could ever see. It's the largest John Lewis store in the UK. Which is really quite special. So you've got the old and the modern, and the two blend together really well. So the canal systems within Leeds, again, the River Aire and the River Calder were established in 1699. And it ended up actually getting linked to the Liverpool Canal in 1816. So again, real heritage. It's got a very diverse economy. It's got a massive, it's the second largest financial sector outside of London, with some really great companies you all would have heard of: the Leeds Building Society, the Yorkshire Building Society, Aviva, KPMG, Direct Line. So all of those companies hail out of Leeds. It's really quite surprising. Also, the law firms, there are over 150 law firms based in Leeds, employing 6,700 people, all of them lawyers. The tourism, 27,000 tourist visitors a year. I mean, 27 million, sorry, not 27,000. So all of these things make up a vibrant city. It is a young city. there's a lot of the earlier migrants to the UK based themselves in Leeds. Trust me, some of these people are prodigious business people. There are 109,000. Yeah, let me get that right. It's 109,000 businesses based in Leeds. Quite incredible. Now, a lot of those are small businesses, but from those small businesses grow the larger companies. So there's real reason why there's going to be solid employment within Leeds. And I'm going to finish my little bit with a bit on sport. So you've got Leeds Rhinos. Obviously we just lost an absolute superstar within rugby, and you've got the various different Leeds-based companies or businesses, shall we say, the Leeds teams in both league and what's the other football rugby called?
Union.
Union. That's the word I was looking for. Sorry.
Look, I think what Pete just said, to echo that, and obviously I'm not going to repeat everything that's on the screen because people have had a chance to read it now. But when we've spoken to existing buyers or people that are considering Leeds as an option, a lot of time it's the first time they've ever looked at the city. So this kind of information is really important because a lot of it is quite surprising, especially the fact it's the largest centre for finance outside of London. We've also got a big percentage of people looking to buy because they're diversifying the portfolio and they do want something a little bit different. And whenever you invest into a city, you've got to look at, okay, what is my tenant pool? Who's going to come and rent my apartments? What does that look like? And when you add up everything that Pete's just said, you've got some of the stats on screen there, 1.4 million workforce, many of them are professionals, 75 to 200,000 students, depending on sort of what your catchment area is. That makes for an excellent tenant pool for anybody considering it as an investment location. The next thing I really want to touch on is, again, it goes back to what Pete said about it's been notoriously difficult to find any good sites in Leeds. And that's not necessarily because there haven't been good sites in Leeds. Obviously, there's some excellent sites to build on in Leeds, but a lot of them over the last few years have been snapped up by large pension funds, big banks and developers that have done the BTR schemes. So for anybody that's watching that doesn't really kind of understand or have an understanding of the BTR schemes, it's basically people that are building the buildings, creating the units, but they're not selling them to the end users like us or our clients. They're getting tenants in there, and ultimately they're enjoying a high rental yield and they're hanging onto the asset because they see the value in the future growth. Now, as an investor, if I'm looking at, okay, well, who do I want to be aligned with? Ultimately, if I can align myself with large pension funds, big banks and developers, it almost becomes a bit of a no-brainer. So again, the opportunity here with the one residencies is to that exactly. It's to, invest into a unit, invest into a site which sits along all of these BTR schemes and ultimately enjoy the same luxury that these pension funds, banks and developers are doing over the next 5 to 10 years. But yeah, that's really been why it's been difficult to get good quality stock. I've seen a few schemes in Leeds in the last couple of years, but it's been, a 20-minute walk into the city centre, 30-minute train ride into the city centre. So, to get this close, and we'll talk about location in a minute, and be aligned with all of the things that are going on, as you can see on screen, I think is a really, really unique opportunity.
I would agree.
Yeah.
The
obviously
is these units again. There's not lots and lots and lots of them. We're not, Greg or I are not going to be able to replicate this for you in the next little while because we know what's available on the ground. There's really not a great deal. So there's not other schemes going to come along and even compete with this, in my opinion.
Yeah, great. And then obviously you've got the regeneration. And again, Pete, you touched on it very briefly. You've currently got probably two important things to understand. You've got a regeneration of the train station there. You've got about 47 million pound being pumped into that, which is a Leeds Council project. And obviously that will improve rail links to all close neighbouring cities. And then the biggest one, obviously, you've got a 500 million pounds South Bank regeneration, which is basically from behind Holborn, which is where our site is, and kind of further out. And the aim of that scheme over the next 10 to 15 years is to double the size of the city. So again, you are investing into an area which is currently going through and has been going through lots and lots of regeneration, which is always a good indicator to an increase in future housing prices as well. So you're already coming in probably slightly below, sort of a Manchester level, but you've got that regeneration to take it to another level of growth over the next 5 to 10. So I think understanding that regeneration, there's lots of information online about Leeds generation. Anyone can go and Google it. You can sift through like pages and pages of data. It's really, really exciting. It's way too much to obviously put on one slide, but this is taking place. And again, as an investor, this is the type of area and this is the kind of, I guess, economic landscape you'd want to be invested into right now, in my opinion.
The other thing is a little fact, but Keir Starmer, our new Prime Minister, actually went to Leeds University.
Yeah, I mean, depending on which side of the fence you fall on, that's either a good thing or a bad thing, right?
So did my daughter, by the way, Pete. She went to Leeds.
Did she?
Very nice. Yeah, she went to Leeds, and I went there. It's only about 20 minutes from Manchester Airport, isn't it? It's very, very close.
Yeah, and you got Leeds
it's close.
Airport as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a nice big hole there.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll come back to the growth in a second, but just we talk about location just because we were talking about train stations and movements. And what you have got with this site here is location, location, location. You'll see on the site on the page there many of the big major businesses. I know, Pete, you mentioned a couple of them as you went through your sort of pitch earlier. You've got some of the top hotels in Leeds, and also this is quite important. There's actually not a lot of hotels in Leeds that you would class as decent where you'd want to stay. It's quite limited. It's also quite limited on Airbnbs as well. So last time I was actually in Leeds, I tried to find a hotel or an Airbnb. Couldn't find an Airbnb at all because there was an event. There happened to be one event going on, and I couldn't find an Airbnb. The closest Airbnb was in Bradford. Don't want to go and stay there. And the cheapest hotel I could find was £450 a night. So, again, it opens up for anybody thinking about doing short-term letting. There's a potentially big opportunity there with this particular project. But as you can see, pretty much every major business, hotel, shopping centre, restaurant, bar, university is all just a stone's throw from the front door. And you look at that kind of blue symbol there, the other side of the city from our site is only a 2 kilometre, and everything else in between it that you'd want it there. Yes, Chris.
You slid in there. It's Airbnb friendly, which it's worth making a note of that, because not everywhere is. Not everybody understands this, but not everywhere is. You've got to have it in the contract so people know it can be Airbnb'd, and that makes a lot of difference to your rental income.
For the dwellings. So.
Say again, Pete.
It's tied to the planning permissions as to whether it's suitable these days.
Exactly. I mean, look, I've never been a massive fan of the short-term let market unless you're a cash buyer. I think if you're a cash buyer, why not? You've not got mortgages to cover every month. You might as well take a little bit of a punt and try and increase your rental yield. If you've got mortgages to pay, you're probably going to want something a little bit more consistency.
Yeah.
You want the comfort and security, but there are short-term lets available. But yeah, from a location standpoint, you're pretty much next to and close to everything that you would ever want to, whether that's on foot, cycle or drive. And again, if you're living this close to the city, most people will just be on foot or using a cycle or an e-scooter. So the location is absolutely phenomenal. Just to touch on, again, I mentioned obviously how Leeds sits within the sort of UK makeup and outlook right now. And again, it's just worth noting, especially as an investor, and you're thinking right now, okay, well, what region should I or could I or would I invest into? And if we look at the sort of UK outlook from now until 2028, they are projecting a 21% increase in housing prices. Obviously, that's as an average, and that'll be some top end new builds. It'll be some areas that potentially go down. It's a good mixture of everything. And then you look, okay, well, where am I going to get most growth out of those different regions? You've got London there at the bottom, projecting to do about 14% growth between now and 2028. Not particularly bad. It's not negative. But again, if you're an investor and you're looking for maximum capital growth, you've got the Northwest there at the top, 28.8%. Obviously, that includes your Manchester. And you've got Yorkshire and the Humber of 28.2%. And obviously, that region itself, Yorkshire and Humber, from an economic standpoint, is around about £150 billion economy. And then you think, okay, well, how much does Leeds make up of that whole? Leeds makes up 60 billion of that 150. So it's the biggest contributor to that region. And when you think the potential capital growth there is, over 25%, That's why most investors should consider Leeds as part of a portfolio, either as your first purchase or certainly as a diversifier if you've already bought somewhere else.
Good figures, very good figures.
Great figures, yeah, really good figures.
You keep trying to show us the building, and then you keep clicking off it again. You're just teasing us.
I'm just going to wait here, yeah, because obviously from here I can talk about the availability, and we can talk about the individual units, talk about average sizes and kind of delivery, and obviously go back and forth on that. But there's a good blend of units within the apartment. Obviously, we're not talking about, you know, a massive scheme of 300 plus units. We're talking 125 units, so it's quite a condensed scheme. 54 of those units are executive residences. Obviously, the sort of rebrand of that would be studios, but they are bigger than a typical studio, which is why we've called them executive residences. These are the ones that would be probably perfect for short-term letting. You've got 49 one-bedroom apartments, 11 twos and 15 threes. Obviously, you've got the price points there in front of you as well, which, you know, extremely palatable. Delivery Q3 2026. So the enabling works is going on now. Construction starts in September this year. It's a 24-month build. Standard rentals projected at 5.7 to 7. So again, you know, do you really need to take that extra sort of risk of a short-term let when you might be getting sort of, you know, circa 6% on a rental? You know, possibly not, dependent on your risk appetite. You'll be delivered with a 999-year lease. Service charge on this, again, for any investor, looking to sort of, you know, make sure that their outgoings are as low as possible. Obviously, the lower you can get those service fees, the better. So £1.70 per square foot. You know, you compare that to Manchester, you're roughly around about £4 per square. And some buildings in Manchester, you're closer to 8. You go to London, you're sort of 7 to 10. So again, that's a good, it's a good indicator that from an investment case, it stands out. Yeah, Chris, sorry, mate.
Question just come in on the executive residence studios. Are they mortgageable?
Yeah,
they are. Good.
Yeah,
that's the other thing on the mortgages. We are going to see rates fall. So over the next 2 years, that's going to help align the yields as well.
Sorry, Greg. Another question. Oh, sorry. 2 questions have just come in, and it actually pertains to the previous slide. But he's asked for. I don't want to throw you under the bus here, but where do those figures come from? JLL, Savills, Knight Frank, I assume.
The outlooks. That's from Savills.
Savills, okay. And the same guy's asked another question. Thank you. Size of the studios.
You bring me on to my next bit. So, okay, so that gives you a sort of an example layout of one of the studios. And again, for anybody that's ever rented or lived in a studio, I think straight away you can see the size potential difference there. You know, the fact you've got your sort of bed, separate dining and living room. That's your average size of your studios there. You've got your one bedrooms, average size 471 square foot, 45 square meters. Again, you know, separate dining, kitchen, living. 2 beds, both with en suites there. Some of those 2 beds come with the kitchen islands, which is quite a nice feature for anybody looking to purchase on the 2 bed. And then some of the 3 bedroom units, average size there, 81 square meters, 865 square foot. A number of them coming with outside terraces and balconies as well. So there's a good mixture of different layout types, slightly different on sizes. They're fairly peppered throughout the different floors as well. Most of the 3 beds, however, do tend to sit at the top. Everything else is pretty much well distributed throughout the floors. Sorry you couldn't see that, Chris.
It looks like I'm the only one, because lots of people say, I can see it, we can see it, Adam Bashir, well, we can see it. So it's really strange. Anyway, I'm sure they'll edit my stupidity out. That bloke in your picture needs a good meal, doesn't he?
Yeah, maybe you need to update your laptop, mate. Something in the 2020s plus might work.
All right, I don't get it. Okay, sorry.
And then finally, if we just get onto some of the example units, and then we can touch on the developer and stuff after if anyone's got any questions on that. But this just gives you a sort of a snapshot of some of the units that are available and those sort of different price points, projected rental yields. And then on the right-hand side, what deposit payments would be available. So it's a 20% deposit on exchange, and then nothing then until completion, which we said is Q3 2026. Obviously, you've got your executive residency starting from 169,500, 240 for the one beds, 339 for twos, and then 417 for the threes. What we've done for Holborn, obviously, we've allocated a set amount of units exclusively. I think we allocated maybe 20, 25 units in the scheme for Holborn clients. So you guys do have access to some of those premium units as well. So again, if you go via your advisor and just request for those exclusive units, then we can obviously get them sent out also.
Can I just recommend to everybody that if you're interested in the one bed units, which are a great price point, please don't hang around. We've had several instances recently where we've tried to give best advice by telling people to please make their reservations quickly, and it hasn't happened. We then had people come back and say, I want to reserve this, that, and the other, and they've all gone. So please, if you're interested, take note that those one bed units will not be here very many minutes, because they won't. All the two beds, the three beds tend to take slightly longer, but just want to sort of point that out. When we say these things, it isn't just a sales pitch, it's the reality. We had a situation just 2 weeks ago where somebody came back, they were interested on the Friday, and then they had a couple of little things they had to sort out, which is fair enough. They then came back on the Wednesday and saw my client would make the decision within the next week. Guess what? Saturday, they were gone. So I just trying to be helpful. That's all.
Yeah, look, and I think, just to echo that, Pete, we've got obviously not a huge amount of units available, period, anyway. But obviously some of those units, as always with any building, will have, I guess, more of a superior kind of vantage point. It might be facing the city, it might be on a corner. Some of the ones that maybe end up at the back of the queue are kind of more towards the back. So for anybody that wants, these sort of front-facing city views, those are the ones that really need to get in quickly, because they're always the ones that sell first, right? 100%. And then finally, I'll just touch on the developer, because again, it's a question that will definitely come up from the client's perspective, and it's something that we should be talking about. So the developer's Hive Living. Hive Living has been set up by two industry experts. You've got Gareth Morgan and Zachary Wheatley. They've both done multiple different roles within property, from chartered surveyors to consultants to obviously managing directors of large development firms. Collectively, they've delivered about £1 billion worth of projects over the UK, spanning over 40 different projects and delivering about 5,000 units. And obviously, those are some of the examples at the bottom there of some of the projects that they've delivered to market. What they've done is they've decided to go on their own and create a new business called Hive Living. So for us, where we get a lot of excitement with working with Gareth and Zach is, number one, they're both based in Leeds, which is helpful. But secondly, this is their coming to market project. So ultimately, this is the project that everything's going to be based on. This is the benchmark that they're going to set for their long-term business and their ambitious growth plans. So from my perspective, if I was going to be involved with a new developer, number one, I'd want to make sure that the people started it were industry experts and had the experience, which obviously we can tick this box. But secondly, if we can get involved with the first one, usually that's the one we'd be most confident about, because obviously, like I say, it's their coming out party. It's the one they're going to use as the benchmark for the future. So it's important that people understand that, and it's important that people understand who's involved. So both great guys, both based in Leeds. So yeah, from that side, we're extremely comfortable with the developer.
What stage of construction is it at, Greg? Is it a hole in the ground or what?
Just doing the enabling works now. So the actual construction will start in September.
Okay, and completion, you've probably done that, but completion?
Q3 2026.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Any more questions?
No, but I'll tell you what I want to do. Following on from what Pete said, just to show that I do actually listen, a great case in point was your Crown View, which you launched, my goodness, probably a year ago, which is obviously in Victoria North in Manchester. You followed that with Falcon, which we did a good webinar on. So if anybody wants to go on, have a look at the webinar, it's on our website, about Falcon. That went very, very quickly, really, really quickly. So there are no units left in Falcon. I know there's some 3 beds left in Crown View, but now coming up is Red Bank, which is all in the same regeneration area of Manchester. And I know you're not allowed to talk about it, so I thought I'd bring it up.
Why not put us on the spot? Yeah, you're right. Look, we were talking obviously before we came on the live, and about Manchester and its growth. And there are some pockets that I would invest into Manchester, and there's some areas that I wouldn't because I think it's probably overpriced. What I like about the Victoria North scheme is obviously it's part of a 15 to 20 year regeneration plan. It's Manchester City Council backed. It's expanding the city centre by 27%. And because of that, the price points are still really palatable. And probably echoed by the sales cycle of Falcon, which we launched on the 10th of February, 165 units. And everything that was released is gone already, like 3 weeks ago. So, and we had exactly the same issue that Pete just said. We sat down with clients on a Monday and okay, I like that unit. Let me go away and think about it. And they come back on Thursday and that unit's been taken by somebody else, and we have to go and try and find something else. So, that happens on a day-to-day basis at the moment because UK property is heating up again. The new tower officially launches in September. So September the 16th, myself and the developer will be in Dubai. We'll be doing group meetings, group presentations for any clients that want to understand more. For any existing clients of Holborn now, whether they purchased or not, as long as they're existing clients of Holborn, if they would like to get pre-allocation access to the units, we do have that option for them. So on the 5th of August, for any Holborn clients that have looked at the project, as in Falcon, decided that they want to buy in the new tower, paid a reservation fee and signed an intention to purchase, then they can have access to units on the 5th of August before it goes live to market on September the 16th.
And if I can, sorry, if I can, Greg, so there's a lot going on in that area. There's a 130-acre new park, which is going to be run by FEC. Do go on to holbornpropertyinvestments.com, look for Falcon, and if you drop down a bit, you'll find the webinar and you'll find out about the whole scheme. And Red Bank is the next one. So if somebody's watching, I've got a couple of questions that come in, which is very unusual. Jamie has asked, what's your top selling development? Jamie, thank you for that. Where exactly is this? This is from Marcella. Where exactly is this in Leeds? I'm just there now. I would like to go and see the site.
Okay. Yeah, so if whoever's asked that question, if you give them my WhatsApp, I'll send them the location pin and they can go and have a walk there. And it's literally like a 6-minute walk from the train station.
I think it's a client. Where exactly? I'm visiting Leeds. Marcella, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, Marcella. If you've got a wealth manager, then go back to him. If not, I'm going to type my WhatsApp number to you on this screen. And then hopefully we can sort that out. Adam Bashir, Labour's Get Britain Building Again manifesto. How do you see this impacting the buy-to-let market over the medium to long term? Greg,
can I add something on that? This the objective of building the 1.5 million additional homes over the next 5 years it's pie in the sky. Now, the reason that that's not going to happen in a hurry, if you look at the infrastructure that is attached to every single major development, for argument's sake, just highways alone, it takes usually approximately 18 months of negotiation to agree and sign off the highways. It's not going to happen in a hurry. And this is where there's a real, there's an awful lot going on with the RICS, the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. The government have come out and made these wonderful provocations about they're going to build 1.5 million properties. Firstly, who's going to build it? Is it going to be the ferries? Are they going to use ferries? We don't have the tradesmen to build 1.5 million houses. We just don't. This last year, we built 160,000 with a 300,000 target. So please don't think that just because Labour are in, they've got some magic fairy dust that's going to deliver these schemes. Won't happen. We're short We're short of people to build them. We're short. They're not permission sites. And although they're saying they're going to, break the planning legislation, it doesn't quite work that way. They've been saying about grey belt. So we've had green belt, and they're going to build on some of the green belt. They're going to call it grey belt. There is no legal terminology for grey belt. It doesn't exist. So watch this space. In 2 years' time, we're going to be exactly where we are today. It's the end of my speech from the Conservative Party.
Thank you, Pete. Hilarious. Great, Marcella. I've come back to you, but if not, go back to your wealth manager or chris.allen@holbornassets.com, and I will pass your details to Greg, and Greg can then tell you exactly how to get there from wherever you are in Leeds. Greg, anything else you want to pop in?
No, I'm actually just going to pop the Google location map though, just in the chat, so everyone's got it. And then what I'm going to do, I can't find it right now. I'm going to forward you the actual One Residences map, and then you can send it out to everybody. But look, I mean, I think obviously we've said it all. I think, for any investor that wants something that's different, unique, that stands out, that sits amongst all of the big boys in the UK, this is it. I mean, the BTR story, that build to rent story, that for me says it all. Like, if you're going to invest somewhere and you've got pension funds and banks doing exactly the same, it's always a good idea to try and follow them, right? The reason a lot of people can't usually follow what institutions do is because the barrier to entry is too high. I look at it like an investment fund. Ideally, everybody would be in the institutional share classes of an investment fund, but you normally need a £10 million ticket. This is almost like an institutional investment into property. You are literally sat with all those pension funds, banks, and large developers at a much more affordable level. So, look, I think from that perspective, it's great. Location-wise, there's nothing even close. And the rental yields are strong enough to present a very strong investment case, both for short, medium, and long-term growth. And I say with the ability to do the short-term lettings for any cash buyers, given the fact there's limited hotels, limited Airbnbs, I do think that presents quite a lucrative opportunity, certainly for cash buyers. Although, as I said, just a caveat, if I was a mortgage buyer, I'd probably just stick to a standard rental. Obviously, we will help with everything for your clients, obviously, that are on the call. So we'll help with obviously the initial education if people want to jump on and do a one-to-one with me. We can obviously help with the solicitors. We've got a good panel of solicitors we use that know the scheme. We've got a mortgage broking business that can help anybody on your call get lending. It's very usual we can't, unusual we can't. And obviously, finally, the sort of piece de resistance is that when it comes to completion and your clients need to get good quality professional tenants in there, we do have our own lettings and management business. They will work with your clients. They'll go to market, they'll list your property, find a tenant, manage that tenant, manage the rentals, and work with you ultimately as their client. So yeah, that's it from me.
Well,
I've got
Greg, you've just managed to answer.
Chris, I've just got one thing I'd like to say. My favourite saying: there's only one thing you need to do within property to make money, and that's be in it. You have to have property. Otherwise, what will happen? We've gone through this little hiatus with the mortgages being more expensive. Now's the time to get in. You'll thank us all, and you'll thank yourselves for investing in 5 years' time, because you're going to be set on the sort of percentages that Greg has said, sort of 27% growth. You would have seen your stock rise. That's all you've got to do. But you've got to be brave enough to get in and do it, rather than talk about it.
Thank you, Pete. I've just got one thing. Marcella's just come back, but Marcella, it's a good question. Will this property be managed? And funny enough, as I was reading that, Greg was answering that. So yeah, fully managed. So that's good. I think we've covered that very, very well indeed. This and other world-class, award-winning webinars are on holbornpropertyinvestments.com. Thank you, everybody. Any questions, let us know.